all up here in the Sundown Bay area. We've had lots of water pushed in here. We've got these little storms that's been developed down into the Gulf for us, so it's pushed a lot of extra water into our systems. We've kind of been dealing with that now for about 10 days. Looks like we got another little system that's going to develop this upcoming week that's going to head toward the Florida area, but we will feel the outreached effects of it from just the tidal surge. So these next probably 4 to 5 days, you can expect lots of water in the system. So if there's an area that you want to get into that you've been thinking about and you haven't really done it yet just because of that, this will be a great opportunity for you to be able to push into some of these areas. So those fish will begin to push back. Now, with the water being up as long as it has, a lot of that stuff is going to be already pushed back into those. Those fish have already been starting to show up in these areas. Usually whenever that happens the very first time we've had a normal tide or high tide or whatever you want to call it, those fish concentrate a little bit, so they're a little bit easier to locate. Once you find them, you can stay on them. But once all this water comes in here and it pushes up and we got water in areas that we haven't had a lot of water, those fish begin to go back with the water levels rising. So it scatters your fish. But we've had this higher water for a little bit now, so these fish have kind of stabilized and back in some of those areas. So great opportunity for you if you can get back into some of those areas. Like I say, some of these things will be really opportunistic. We work just back shoreline here in Sundown. It's one of the areas I like to get when we really do have those high tides, because fish will push right up against that shoreline. We were fishing like right on the grass line, thigh to waist deep water, and some of that stuff in that area. Great bottom that's in there. It's pretty solid for the most part. You get a little squishiness here and there, but it's ideal. You got a nice grass line that's in there. You've got plenty of bait that's in there. We're so much stacked bait in some of these areas. It's ridiculous. So you really kind of have to be patient to work these areas. When you do have that amount of bait in there, you're fighting for the fish's attention because they see so much live bait just swimming around that you really got to make your bait stand out for them to attack it. So that's kind of a small little drawback to the artificial game, but at the same time, when you fool that fish to eat that bait, it's a pretty big deal because you're beating live bait with an artificial. So it's pretty cool. But again, like I say, we've been working these back areas on this back shoreline here in Sundown with pretty good success. Again, the main bait this past week that's been very good for us has been bone diamond and white ice. Those two colors have been the most productive for us, just consistently catching fish with that color pattern. And, I throw it in the down south. I throw it in the knock and tail. Have it in the mirror lure Little Johns, the Little John XL. If there's some other flavor that you want to throw or another brand that you like that you have that's got that same color pattern, you'll do well to throw that, whatever that is. I know some of the stuff that we've been throwing with the down south and the big smooth and the supermodels have been pretty good. But again, the original size and the burner shad size has been very good for us in that particular color course. And then our ones that's been standbys for us is still produce, and that's Big Papa's been good. Twisted Tea's been very good for us. Watermelon Red, those same flavors. All those ones have been very good for us, and I think we've even thrown in a little bit of Supernatural. Mud Minnow has been a couple of other. Firecracker has been good because some of the water, we have not had super high winds. So again, we still have really calm conditions, and the water has been pretty clean for the most part. So we're staying to the solids, to the more translucent side of bait color in selection in some of these areas. But again, the two standouts for us have been bone diamond and white ice. Spalding area, all back in here. Of course, we're spending some time back in this area quite a bit. Again, with the amount of water we have, so these areas really light up for us. I like to get in all these little back lakes that are back. They're all interconnected, man. You can, with the amount of water you do have in here right now, you can run these things all back in here. You can get all the way back over into Mesquite Bay if you want to, because it's all connected together. We'll run these back bays that come into these back lakes here, get over into these back lakes over here. Of course, I've told this one back before, is sometimes I'll just put the boat over on the Carlos side up into this area here and just walk across into these back lakes and throw topwaters back in there. And that's one of the things we've had a lot of success with too over these last several days, throwing a lot of topwater. If you're a topwater fan or a topwater junkie, now's the time to really get that sucker out and get it going, because we were having some amazing success throwing the topwater baits. I'm throwing the Spook Junior, Mansfield Knocker main 2 that I throw primarily. Just throw it in like a black and silver color pattern, or the Bone Diamond's good. The white pattern is good. Either one of those has been just fine. A lot of floating grass, something you will have to contend with if you are going to fish these back lake areas, back in these areas like that. Like I said, you got lots of water that are all these back lakes really light up. So if you don't know your way around in some of these, find somebody that can either take you or go with somebody, because you can put yourself in a little bit of jeopardy if you're not sure how to maneuver back through here. So even though there is a lot of water and it's easier to run, there's still some hazards that you got to be aware of. So, but again, we've been working, this is like Sherman's, been coming up here on Jaybird, been working these back lakes all in this area here, all the way down to Paul's Mott area, Long Reef Bend. So you've got a bunch of back lake mouths that dump out into these little areas in here. We've been fishing these guts that are out here and been kind of standing out on the grass line on the inside of those, up on the corner here to the Mott. So we've really spent a lot of time in these areas. So with the amount of water, again, I know I'm kind of being repetitive with it, but you can cover a lot of water area, and these fish are going to be tight to shorelines. They're going to be tight to grass. They're going to be tight to shale somewhere. It wouldn't be just like swimming out in the middle of a deep pool, if you will. But once you find that structure, figure that structure out, and just pay attention to what your bait's doing. Bait will dictate to you a lot as well. But again, what I mentioned in the last video, there's so much bait in the area, you got to fight for their attention. So really be specific on how you work your baits and your technique. Really make that bait stand out. Kind of seeing what's going on. Again, majors and minors have been a key thing for us. Been working the mid-morning minors, a little bit into the majors and later in the day like that. Like I say, we're on the back side of the new moon now, headed toward a full moon, so we're going to be in those transition days. So again, just have a variation of size and colors in your box. I know I've mentioned in the past before, you could have a new moon box, you could have a transition box, you could have a full moon box. Wouldn't be a bad idea, but that kind of cuts down the decision-making process there for you. But whatever you like to do, just have a variation in that, and hit these areas and enjoy. Get out there and especially this upcoming week, you'll have some opportunities to fish a lot of this water. Back up here in the turtle pen area, all this area back here, because again, you got back lakes that dump off into these back here. Now, the one thing about these particular back lakes up here in the turtle pen area, they're really soft if you're going to weight them. My suggestion on that is if you have a trolling motor on your boat and you want to get back in there, just put the big motor up and put your trolling motor down and just kind of work the edges. It's easier to do because, yeah, that mud back there is for real. It can get really sticky and bad in certain situations. So, especially if you're fishing by yourself, I wouldn't suggest that you would try to fish those back lakes like that. Although big wading guy, but those areas there would be a smart decision to fish off the boat. Throwing your topwaters at that, working right down the shoreline edge, because you can do it real easy. Again, with all the water that we're going to have and have had, those areas kind of widen out a little bit, so it makes it pretty easy to work it from the boat. So that's a great advantage from there. So we've been working that. The shoreline here on the turtle pen area. And again, another thing I like to do when that water does get up like that is get back here in the Copano Creek area, run all this back through here and just kind of work that big flat that's in there. There's a few hazards in there if you haven't run it, so just be careful as you work your way through it. But again, with the amount of water that we will have in our system and have had in our system, it allows you to get back through here, to get back to the creek area. And you got little areas, drains, you got little pockets you can get all through these areas, all back in here. And you can, like I say, this is a great location back in here to throw your topwater bait, especially if you like to throw topwater. You have some really good action. You have some really good opportunities back. And of course, you can stick with your plastics as well. Again, we're throwing 16th ounce jig heads, nothing heavy. If you're trying to reach real far out, then some of these areas you may want to put maybe an 1/8 ounce jig head on just to give you a little bit more distance if you're going to fish it from the boat. And some of this area back here gets squishy as well, so just keep that in mind if you're going to fish all that. And of course, you're just working the creek area, working that lagoon that's back in there, working the shoreline out here, this big flat that comes out here on this point that stays in all that. You get on the other shell point side over here, and you got a couple of back lakes that dump off back into that. So we've spent some time on these shorelines. Got a nice base that's in there. Got some scattered shell that's in that stuff. We've picked up a few trout and picked up a flounder here or there. Picked up redfish that are back in those areas. Again, the colors that we've been using, white ice and bone diamond, have been our most productive, and that's in the original size down south, the burner shad size and down south, even thrown some of the supermodel, but not quite as much. Another bait that we've kind of incorporated into our box has been the Coastal Brew, which I've mentioned them in the past. They've got a nice line of baits that are out. If you haven't tried those, get you a bag of those and try those every once in a while. Of course, the Mirror Lure Little Johns and the XLs have been good for us. Knock and tail. But again, in all these different bait companies, we've been primarily throwing that white ice and bone diamond. Now, we've incorporated the others in there with Twisted Tea, Big Papa, Watermelon Red, Firecracker. Let's see, what else is there? Tons of flavors. So something that's maybe a little bit darker. Texas Roach has been another one that's kind of been just sporadically put in there to it just to try it to see if it's worked for us. But yeah, those primary colors have been very good for us. Again, be patient with it. Again, with the amount of bait that's in here, you're going to have to really work to make your bait stand out with different techniques. Then you will just have to let the fish dictate, seeing what they're really wanting, seeing what the size of your bait that's working in these areas. See, if it's finger mullet size or maybe just a little bit bigger size. And again, we're on the back side of the new moon, so that bite frame may last long. It may not last very long, but you just kind of have to see how that works for you once you work all these areas. But again, patience is key for it. Pay attention what your weather patterns are going to be this upcoming week, because right now that hurricane that's out there in the Gulf looks like it's going to head toward Florida. But again, we'll get the effects of it from just the rising tide. So be safe out on the water and have fun.